Back in Russia, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says the Ukraine war will end with an agreement, but its content will depend on the military situation there in the country. He made the comment during an interview with Russian state television, adding that Kyiv was only imitating negotiations, according to a transcript published on the Foreign Ministry's website. Let's talk more about the security situation in Ukraine and developments out of the country. Joining me now is security expert Temitope Oludo. He's in London. Temitope, thank you for joining me this morning. And I know it's pretty early, so I do appreciate your being here. So let's begin with what you make of the Russian foreign minister's words. And that came up earlier, in the program. It sort of gives us an idea as to when this war will end. How are you interpreting that? Because he says the war will end with an agreement, but its content will depend on the military situation. How are you reading this?
Thank you so much for having me. I think for many security analysts, it's quite clear that Russia was not fighting Ukraine alone, because it's out there in the public domain, the number of weapons that are being distributed, to Ukraine from many Western countries, and, the support that is provided to them. So it's quite clear that Russia was not fighting Ukraine alone, but they were actually fighting the might of NATO. The only difference was that there is no NATO boots on the ground in terms of physical soldiers on the ground. That's the only difference. But it's quite clear, and that is the reason why, the Russians' position is quite clear. From what we are seeing now in the last few days, that they're trying to carve out, that part of the East that they are actually hitting on. Now we know there's a victory day that is coming in May. Putin will definitely want a situation where he could report to his people about his progress, and they've been hearing sniffings of war going on that they've never. And I think it's significant that for the first time, they are now coming out to say there is a war before they used to say there's a conflict. So we must take this very seriously. But the world community will not allow this to go nuclear. NATO will not want it to go nuclear because a lot of things will be destroyed along that path. And so there would be negotiation. So this is all part of the war propaganda. One group need to continue to stay strong and argue, and we could see that the president of Ukraine have actually come out to say, yes, I want to negotiate with Putin directly. That was not part of the language in the past. So my view is that it is a dangerous situation, but as we get to this point, there will be the escalation, hopefully, because many people will get involved, Israel, Turkey, as they are now. And we've seen that at least today, the United Nations, big bosses going there to have a conversation with them. So let's see how it goes today, and we'll be able to determine what next will happen.
Yeah, and I just want to point out that, Russia is still not referred to this, what do you call the special operation? Still refers to it as a special operation. We're the ones calling it a war because we can't in good conscience just say it's just a special military operation. But you do make a point, though, where you say that, NATO is sort of fighting this war by proxy. And, with all of these NATO countries providing military weapons to Ukraine, where's Russia getting its own military weapons? I don't want to believe that, Russia just has a buildup, of military arsenal that is just rolling out into Ukraine. There must be help coming from somewhere.
Definitely, there is no doubt. We know that from information available that was coming out, and that's part of the reason why, some of the Western countries were trying to engage, with China, because there was a time where it was rumors or said that Russia was requesting for certain support from China. What we don't know is if there have been all the things that have been destroyed so far have been Russia-made weapons. We've not seen a Chinese-made weapon being destroyed in the theater of war. So we could assume that they've not yet exhausted their weaponry. But that being said, when we look at the scale of the weapons that have been given to to Ukraine. We must actually start to understand the destruction that have gone on in that little theater of war, because this is a place where there's more than up to £2 billion worth of equipment that have gone in there, and records equipment have been destroyed. We've seen them on our TV screens, tanks, we've seen planes that have been downed and all these things. If only our viewers could just imagine if Ukraine did not get just 50% of what have been given to them by the West, they would have been overrun. And that clearly explains why the Russian has taken the view that they are not actually fighting on their own. They are actually fighting the war, because at least we know that Africa is not involved in this war. Certain Asian countries are not involved there. So this is the war between Russia and the West. And this has helped at least the West to know the capacity of Russia outside the nuclear weapon that they have. And this is helping Russia to know at least, the kind of enemy that they are facing. Because if Russia could not defeat Ukraine, alone, without NATO coming out publicly, what will happen when NATO get involved? And that's the reason why they are insisting that this might become, might go nuclear very soon. And we're hoping it does not go nuclear.
Yeah, but isn't Russia warmongering? I mean, it's pretty hard to read, President Putin's actions over the last few days. The Foreign Ministry has warned of a threat of a third world war, quite unfounded though, but I mean, this is Russia we're talking about. So, and then, Russia has threatened the use of nuclear weapons as well. Do you think, I mean, it's almost like, someone pointing a gun at your head. You don't wait to find out if it's a real gun, of course. You just run, or you do what you have to do to survive. So do you think that Russia is just warmongering in this instance, or, should the rest of the world take Russia even more seriously as it, warns that there could be a world war in the horizon?
All the plans of the West to date has actually failed, if you want to look at it. They've made suggestions of Putin being overthrown through an internal coup or palace coup. That has not happened. There's pride issue here, and when pride gets involved, when pride is put into the cocktail, it becomes quite difficult, to actually understand where the next move will come from. Our prayer is that all the good countries that are standing by as observers, that Russia has not seen as taking side, will come together and call Putin to order, more or less to say, let's keep it at the level at which it is now, and let's try and find a peace out of it. Because if we go nuclear, a lot will be destroyed. A lot has already been destroyed, because Ukraine will never really recover that quickly from this destruction. We've had destruction up to the standard of the Second World War in one country. We're not talking across the world. In one country, everything has been destroyed, the infrastructure, and it's over 30%, 70% of their infrastructure have been destroyed. So the question now is, can we tell what Putin's next move is? Only God could do that, because at this stage, we don't know what Putin's next move is. But we know that there must be people within Russia and out of Russia that are thinking of de-escalating this issue so that it does not go nuclear. And I know all the other countries, UK is going to be one of those countries that is a target, because at the end of the day, they've been in the forefront, and that's the reason why Boris Johnson and the other politicians have been banned from Russia. And that tells you how this is escalated. We need to de-escalate it one way or the other.
Yeah, there are many countries on Russia's target list. There's Germany, there's also the United States. But, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres is due in Moscow anytime now. He's supposed to prevail, on the Russian president to end this war. Do you think that this meeting could yield any positive results?
It is our hope that it yields some result, even though it will not stop the war, within 30 minutes of him getting out of there. What it might do is that it will create an opportunity for maybe humanitarian corridors, for those that need, to get out. I know you want to agree to that, so that it's not seen as that much of that bully. You will also come out strong to say that those proxies that are helping Ukraine, must back down. So it will come out tough. But the fact that he at least is seeing and is having that conversation, with the UN, Secretary General, is a good sign. It shows that at least he's not lost all hope in the United Nations. Because imagine if he loses all hope in the United Nations and he doesn't want to engage with them, then we have a serious problem in our hands. But the fact that at least that corridor, that pathway is still open, shows that there is hope that this issue will be resolved as quickly as possible. And we are hoping that any plan that he has ahead of the Russia celebration in May, of victory, against Nazis and all those things, that he will not over-escalate the issue in order to be able to get something or a bone that he could throw to his people to say, this is what we are doing and we are strong against the world coming against us.
Assuming he does attend, those celebrations. Thank you again, Temitope Olodo. A real pleasure having you on the program this morning.
The pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much.
Coming up after the break. Hey announces it is dropping all tariffs on goods coming to Britain from Ukraine. Stay with us.